And the good news is today I'm joined by my good friend Richard Ansah. And Richard and I, oh, we've known each other on and off, I think for must be close to, I think at least 10 years. I think we met at
Probably
very,
longer.
yeah, I was going to say
Maybe longer.
15.
I'd say the first time me and mine came to the UK.
Right, 2009, 2010. I was about
Yeah.
to say 15 years. And I
Yeah.
thought,
So
yeah,
it's a while.
it's a while, it's a while. And I know his wife Tracy. But reason why I wanted Richard to jump on here is because over the last couple of years, we've been talking about protection of your assets. You know, if you are a business owner
Yeah.
and you don't protect your assets, if you don't have things at a foundational level laid out, when something happens to you, what happens to what you've built? What's happened to the finances? So we're going to talk all things wills, trust, protection, assets protection, because you
Yes.
can work hard for your money. But guess what? If you're not smart with your money, what is left? Not
Exactly.
much. So welcome, welcome, welcome to the Business and Wealth Show, Richard.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. I was saying to you some time ago, because I had thought we had spoken on the Business and Wealth Show, and I suddenly realized, no, we haven't. And I don't know how that slipped my mind. But anyway,
Nothing happens before the time, mate. Nothing happens before the time. So,
yeah, exactly. Why should anyone stay and listen to this particular show here, Richard?
well, especially if you're a business owner and you love your family, then there's something that I think all business owners go through, which is you work really hard pretty much most of your entrepreneurial life. You pay enough taxes pretty much all for your entrepreneurial life, and we work hard to give our families a good life and to better ourselves and better everyone around us who we love. And it'd be a travesty to pass away and not be able to pass all that you'd planned to your loved ones because of tax, especially inheritance tax. So if you believe in generational wealth or you want that to happen, or don't have an exit plan and you want to start thinking about one,
Yeah,
that's what I do. I help uh, business owners who love their family to kind of protect their wealth and pass it down generationally.
fantastic, very fantastic. Listen, typically on the show, I ask people about the entrepreneurial background. What has been your entrepreneurial background? I know you've been running Once Wills and Trust for 6 or 7 years, but before that, you was doing other things, right?
Yeah. So I think my journey kind of started in 2004, 2005. I kind of read a book, famous book, quit
Which
my
one was
job,
that?
Rich
Which
Dad Poor Dad.
that for that? Yeah, absolutely.
uh, Quit my job literally during my first child. My wife was heavy in labor, and when she had a chance to sleep, I devoured this book and I made a decision. So I quit my job, um, and I started a um, property business and a mortgage brokerage business.
Okay.
So I started off as a mortgage broker. I was in finance, and then built a lot of property. Uh, the goal was, wait 7 years, prices double, and then you sell it, and then away I would go. That was what kind of my original dream. Not didn't quite
Yeah.
manifest that way, but that was the dream. Um, 2008 kind of took place. That was a kind of a very tough season.
The financial crisis. Yeah.
Yeah, that crash took place. I didn't see it coming, and I thought I was really good at what I did, and but yeah, it just hit me sideways. Just wasn't expecting it. So I kind of went through learned a lot of tough lessons, financially, understood how the game really works, how the world really works with money. And I said, well, look, rather than getting angry, let me help people not to make the same mistakes that I made. That's pretty much how it started with this whole journey. And I got into trusts quite heavily, and the law and court and just asset protection was my thing. So I started an online business, just teaching, so wealth guardian education, just teaching people how to protect your wealth, how to stay away from the ugly side of that kind of wealth game. If you get yourself in a bit of trouble,
Mm.
what do you do? How do you ring fence your assets? What's the law to protect you? And just eliminating ignorance, um, and also just bettering yourself in terms of understanding how to make money, understanding how to change our mindset. So it's very much education based. I realized that my passion was to teach, is to teach.
Right.
And I got into sales quite heavily. I was doing a lot of door-to-door sales to kind of learn, develop a
Did you
skill.
really?
Yeah, I kind
That,
of took
that
a leaf
is,
out of Robert Kiyosaki's book. Like, well, look,
no, it's a good thing to do. It really
yeah,
builds your backbone up around entrepreneurship and selling. Getting all those
it
rejections, it
was.
really toughens you up. Yeah,
I
carry
was,
on.
I realized I was very good at corporate, but just to kind of just have a I'm very well, you wouldn't believe it, but I'm a naturally an introvert. So just to spark a conversation and speak to people naturally and just understand to serve. I had to develop that skill. It wasn't easy, so I threw myself in the fire, so to speak, and did door to door sales with charity mainly. Loved that. It was very very good. Um, got backbone, commission only. Just had to learn and do that. Um, and then yeah, I've decided to kind of really jump into the deep end and set up a company. Originally, it was will writing, and I've really worked my way up and become a specialist now in inheritance tax and trust. It's quite a interesting journey, but it all kind of pieces quite nicely together.
Yeah, no, it's great. And by the way, congratulations on your 6 year anniversary of Once Wills and Trust.
Thank you.
It's
Appreciate
been
it.
a journey, I'm sure, from the beginning up to now, right?
Yeah, yeah, running a business this has its challenges, but it's fun. But it's not for the faint of heart.
Absolutely. Tell me something, to explain to our listeners here, the people who are tuned in, the difference between a will and trust as well, because your company's once wills and trust.
Yeah.
But for those who don't understand the importance of wills, I think most people would, but then the trust element of it as well. Go ahead.
So okay, so let me give a bit of preamble. So because I'm all about protecting wealth,
Yeah.
and a will is just a tool. A trust is just another tool.
Mm.
What's the principle of protecting the wealth? And kind of the once is an acronym. It stands for own nothing, control everything. So the secret to
Oh,
wealth
wow.
is
Okay.
to own nothing, control everything. So once you understand that dynamic, and that came from a story. I think it was David Rockefeller, one of the Rockefeller brothers,
Yeah.
100 years ago, made 300 million in a year, and he's been interviewed, and how do you earn that money and not pay a single penny in tax? And that was his response. The secret to wealth is to own nothing and control everything. Which, with my trust brain, I realized, oh, so trust is the way forward.
Mm.
And when you understand about how ownership works in the, I say the Western world, um, it's all about property rights, and property rights comes down to legalities, like who owns it legally, who can prove where the title come from, whether you're, standing on a piece of land or buying a tin of baked beans, the title required, like the receipt or the title deed, show us the proof. And the one who has the title is the one who's legally responsible to pay the bills, or whether it's council tax or property taxes or
Right.
any kind of tax. If you own it, you're subject to taxes. So the wealthy just say, well, look, I can control this thing, but I don't want to own it. I don't want the headache of ownership, but I want to control. Hence why we utilize trust. So a will is just a very simple form of trust that will come alive when someone passes away. And
Okay.
it just allows you to take control of your wealth, to distribute it to your loved ones, um, where you want your wealth to go, assets to go. So you'd make specific gifts. You'll say, what your wishes are, and have an administrator or an executor to kind of oversee all of that and go through probate, et cetera, et cetera. So a will is just a formal document that allows you to have control of how your wealth is distributed. And the problem I find that people don't have a will, but we all will have a will because the government will give you their version if you don't have your own. And so when you kind of look at it from that perspective, and it's important to kind of take control rather than have someone else take control on your behalf, and it may not go in the direction that you want it to go. So effectively, a will is, we call it a testamentary trust. It comes alive when someone dies.
When someone dies.
It's a trust or a type of trust that will, you can set it up immediately, and it can work either during lifetime or kick in when someone passes away.
Got it. Thank you. And typically, like you said, if someone doesn't have a will in place and they pass away, is it the same typically around countries globally, the same thing? The
Too much,
government, right? Okay.
pretty much. I mean, the 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 there are variances. So countries which have religious-based laws will have
Mm.
their own version,
Right.
um, but most countries would have some form of a will or some form of a system to distribute wealth. So in most parts of Europe, it's a more of a standardized system. So we call it forced heirship. So it kind of just follows a system. Uh,
Okay.
uh, in common, I'll use the words Commonwealth countries. It's a traditional, well, as far as we're concerned, a traditional system where you have a will, and so
Yeah.
there's freedom of testamentary freedom. So you can choose how wealth is distributed. You don't have to go down the government line, so to speak. So yeah.
Got it. Right. So we're talking about protecting wealth and creating generational wealth for families.
Mm.
What are some steps that you can share with us that allows one to start putting these protections in place?
Well, first thing I say, there's no kind of cookie cutter solution. The first thing is to understand, well, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve? Especially as a business owner, do you actually have an exit plan? That's the question I always ask.
Okay.
Because some people will be like, well, I just want to shut the business down. I don't have any intention of passing it on to the family, which is one variant. And another's like, well, hopefully, I think the children may want to take over one day. We'll wait and see and take it from there. But there's no kind of exit plan. So they're doing well now. And most people tend to think about the immediate taxes like income tax or maybe capital gains tax, corporation tax, or don't think about the end goal. So for us, the biggest question is like, well, what do you want to see happen? And what's your situation now? Because everyone's different. I mean, you've got people who are single, divorced, remarried, blended families, etc., etc. So there's no kind of perfect solution. All there is what's the best solution for that individual based on their circumstances and what they want to see.
Right.
And then we've got an added dimension, which is inheritance tax planning. So you can go to a will writer, but you won't necessarily have inheritance tax planning when you're writing a will. And this is where people get confused. They just think, well, I've got a will, what's the problem?
Mm.
Um, and they treat it more of a commodity, like it's like a car or something. It's like, well, it does the job, what's the problem?
Right.
I'm finding out people just don't know what they don't know. And so hence, when you want to start making gifts, especially when you're affluent or relatively wealthy, or just rich, if you don't get the right type of advice, it's going to cause you more problems than you probably planned for. And we have this presumption in our head that, well, surely it'll just go to the family, there'll be no problems. But when you start to share what could go wrong, people start to realize I didn't actually know. So it's vital to get information and to start as soon as possible so you can just know what the exit plan is.
Right, right. Well, what are some common mistakes then people make when it comes to, apart from having an exit plan, what are some of the common mistakes that some people make, especially, that someone passes away, the family now has to deal with this,
Mhm.
and if they had known something that they should have put in place, but they haven't. Are there some common things that
Yeah.
happen?
So common thing is either they have no will,
Okay.
they have a will, but it's super basic for their situation or their needs. They don't risk mitigate. What I mean by that, so if they have an inheritance tax problem, how is it going to get paid off? They don't understand the probate process. So these
Mm.
are typically the common mistakes. The other side of it is protection against mental capacity scenario. So if someone's alive but they can't speak for themselves or can't think for themselves anymore, and they're the main breadwinner or they're the main decision maker around the wealth and finances, who takes over in the business? Who
Right.
takes over in the family? These are common things that we see. And then how do we protect against family disputes? So a lot of people think, well, I'm entitled to an inheritance at some point, um, and expect it to come their way. And people just, families just maybe don't get on. And then money's like alcohol, it will accelerate or exacerbate a problem. And without proper planning, it could have been prevented. Uh, in choosing the wrong trustees or the wrong responsible parties to make decisions, etc., etc. So it can be quite convoluted, but those are what I see the common problems are. Um, no life insurance. So, why would you not have it?
Mm.
So yeah, there are quite a few things, but those are the most common that I see all the time.
Is that the
And just
reason
lack of
why?
knowledge.
Lack of knowledge. And that's what I was about to say. Is that the reason why you do the work you do and providing this kind of education? Um, because people are ignorant to the fact that this can happen or that can happen.
Yeah. That most people think it's like, well, why am I talking about this now? Let's put it off till later. Or when I say I'm an inheritance tax specialist, oh, you don't need me. I'm not. You don't need me. I'm not wealthy yet. So they don't understand how the rules of the game are played.
Uh-huh.
Just put it off. They just think, oh, that's for the rich people. Or that's for the uber rich or wealthy. And that's like people don't realize how much wealth they're actually sitting on. They just look at their bank account and think that's it. But it's not really how it works. I have a lot of people say to me that, well, I don't have to pay inheritance tax because I haven't inherited anything. I'm like, that's not how the rules work.
That's right.
So this is a complete misunderstanding, this lack of education.
Yeah, I get it. So what inspires you, or why do you find this work? Why do you find passion in this work? What happened? Why, you moved from looking at your background, you're highly qualified. I think you got a couple of master's degree. I mean, it's and you
So
moved into this field. What
what
happened?
you're asking me is how does someone shift from engineering
Engineering to
to
yeah.
going into law and tax? So am I okay to get a bit real with?
Yeah, yeah, get real.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
that's we want the real. We want the real.
I can get real. I mean, it's not. So what happened? So let's go back to 2008. So
2008.
I,
Yeah.
I was,
Period for a lot of people.
yeah, it was hard, and I was living this life of like, the money's there, the property's there. I was that guy in a pinstripe, walking down Old Street with literally, I'd have metal, what do you call it now? Uh, Caps at the bottom of my sole of my shoes.
The
You'd hear me
shoes,
a
yeah.
mile
Click,
away.
click. You can
Right?
hear you coming, yeah.
You could hear me coming. So my ego was huge,
Right.
and I was good at what I was doing. So when this happened, I was like, "What's going on?" And then when I
So at
understood,
that period, you got properties, you got portfolio, money's good,
yeah,
dressing sharp, looking
yeah,
sharp, things are
exactly
going well.
right. So that,
2008
so
hit.
that kind of gives you the picture of how what
Yeah,
things were like. Um, between myself and my wife, we accumulated about 28 properties between us. We
28.
had,
A
yeah.
lot.
So there's a lot of properties at the time, plus the mortgage business. I was living this dream. Like, yeah, it's happening. To have that all kind of just literally taken the rug, just taken off under your feet, it wakes you up. You realize that how do you have the right to do this? What's going on here?
Mm,
Um, and then the other side of it, like, what's a financial bubble? Why did the banks crash? Like, why would this happen? And you're not taught this as a financial advisor. I wasn't taught this. This was not in the books,
right.
so you don't see these signs coming. So those who knew, I've had either survived previous recessions or
Mhm.
crashes, been in the game long enough to know when to buy, when not to buy, and not make those mistakes. So then understanding how banking works, how money really works, banks will never lose. So ultimately, it opened my eyes, and an anger took place within me, where I was like, this can't happen. It's not right. But rather than taking it out the wrong way, I decided to go down the education route. Hence why I said, no, rather than allow people to make the same mistakes that I made, let's help people prevent that from happening. So my passion was fueled from my experiences. So I actually became bankrupt, or was made bankrupt. Understood that, well, they could just take everything from you. Like, oh, okay, and it's all about trusts. The system is predicated in this country on trust.
Trusts.
So hence, I've got to learn it. I've got to learn this game. What gives the government the right to assign trustees and say, right, we're just taking this and they're taking that, and you're not competent to handle money yourself, so we're going to handle it for you. That's what bankruptcy literally means,
Yeah.
and it's deemed as a benefit, privilege. When you understand the game, you can understand that,
Yeah.
and everyone just stops contacting you. You're looked after by the state effectively for 12 months, and you can go out the other side and you start your life all over again. I was like, well, how does that work? So I really studied that out quite deep, and understanding taxation and everything else. So then when I realized what games really being played, it just fueled into we're ignorant. People are generally ignorant about how life works. We're just in this bubble of you just buy a house. If you need to buy a house, you get a mortgage, you go to work, you pay the mortgage off. We
Mm,
It's life. Um, and so the wealthy do the complete opposite. I'm not going to go into that. But ultimately, there's a game being played. So my job is like, well, let's learn the rules and
yeah,
play the game better. And that's really what fuels me. That's why I do what I do. It's pretty much I'm a bookworm. I'm an academic, well, was an academic, so I love to learn.
yeah.
As an engineer, I love to solve problems, and tax and law is perfect for that. So I'm in probably the best space ever. And having worn a t-shirt, I actually understand what it's like to lose something. As a maybe other lawyers may not actually understand what it's like to lose.
That's what I was about to say because for you, because I've known you for so many years. So when I hear you speak about this subject, there's so much passion. There's so much thinking, where does that all that come from? And I
Yeah,
can only really look at it from my own perspective because I have a passion for teaching and training and speaking and that kind of stuff. But mine was fueled from, well, not dissimilar to yours, almost losing my business, being over 100 grand in debt, struggling, trying to make sure I can look after my family and pay my staff. And so it drove me to study business well. So understand all the intricacies of business and what can go wrong,
yeah,
from marketing and sales and having the right team in place and having the right systems in place. So if something happens to you, the business can still exist. So I know that very well. So I have a passion of, well, I can see when a business owner's going so far, 100 miles an hour and they're going to hit the wall. I can see it,
right.
right? And so I have a passion to say, hey, slow down. Make sure you got a foundation in place. Make sure you got this. So I have that. So it's good to hear from your side of it, from the pain that and the challenge you went through, so
Yeah,
much so that you don't want other business owners to go through the same channel,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
So it's good to hear. So tell us about go a bit deeper in terms of the concept of own nothing and control everything.
yeah,
And I do know it, but I want our audience to really understand this concept, especially the way rich people play it, wealthy people play it. And this is not a new thing. It's hundreds of years, thousands of years they've been doing this. And it's all predicated around trust, like you said.
yeah.
But for a business owner who is there running their business, they paint that, they just want to exist. Some are building it with the right exit in terms of being able to sell it one day or hand it to the family or whatever. How do those people, the ordinary person, own nothing and control everything?
No, that's a great question. Um, okay, so the concept really is understanding the basic financial system we live in. Okay, so uh, without getting too technical, but if I have, let's say I buy an item like a tin of baked beans, okay,
Right.
or I do my weekly shop wherever you shop,
Yeah,
whatever supermarket you shop, you do your weekly shop, and if you were to walk out and the alarm goes off, the first thing is the security guard going, what's the first thing they ask for? They ask to see the receipt.
right.
So the supermarket are not concerned about the contents in the basket. They are concerned about, do you own or do you have title to the goods that are in the basket? So
Mhm.
we see the physical stuff, but how law works is this, do you own it or do you not? And if you do, can you prove it? So if you have a house, you go land registry, if you have a business, you go to company's house, etc. It's just paperwork.
Right.
So there's an owner, and the owner proves it. So that now in with a trust, we have the power to separate the type of ownership. There's full ownership, which is what most people have. I control the decisions and I own it beneficially. But you can actually own something where someone is the administrator of it or the face of this asset.
Mm.
So if you use a business as an example, you can have a nominee director who or CEO who's just paid to run the company, but they don't have shares. They don't actually own the business, but they run it. So they're a nominee, they just run it, they're a trustee or director of the company, but the real owner of the business are the shareholders.
Yeah.
So the shareholders would vote, they would decide how things would go. they have power, and the shareholders are not necessarily seen publicly unless the shareholder also happens to be the director. So now, if I can separate that from legal ownership and beneficial title,
Mhm.
beneficial title means I have the power to enjoy its use, and that's it. I don't have to worry about it. Whereas a legal owner, well, they've got the administrative headache, like, well, pay the tax, pay the bill, upkeep, renew,
Yeah.
make it, keep it clean, etc. What's the decisions being made? So when you can understand that there's two separate things going on legally, a trust just separates them. It just says, well, rather than having one owner doing everything, let's just separate it. So we've got someone that beneficiary owns, and they just enjoy its use. There's no headache, no stress. They just drive the car and give it back. You
Right.
know, just enjoy its use. Whereas a legal owner has to pay the bill, pay the parking ticket, pay the tax, but they don't own the business. They just run it.
Yeah.
If you understand that concept, that's what a trust does. It just separates that title. Now you can own something, um, but not, but you don't want to own it outright, but you want to control. So the trustee has a control, and the beneficiary has what we call an equitable title, but that's not recognized in our law that we understand. Okay, there's two different law forms in the UK. Most people just understand one part of it.
Right.
So the beneficiary is not really seen. They're not heard. It's very private. It's a different world, and they just enjoy it. So when we can understand that concept, then that's what the rich and wealthy do. So literally, you hear lots of celebrities go bankrupt, and they're still living like a king or queen because they don't own it
Right.
and they're
Right.
playing a game.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. So that's a. I'm trying without getting too technical. That's basically what's going on.
That's what's going on.
And the mix and the complication comes in with the tax. It's like, okay, so how do we do all this? And the taxman's like, well, I still want my piece of the pie. And
Mm.
that's now where we get very technical, and you've got to get the advice and understand that world to still play the game and play it well.
Right. And so essentially, why do people need you or need your firm?
So both understanding what to do and
Mm.
understanding how to do it.
Yeah.
Most lawyers, solicitors are general practitioners. So they'll draft the will, and we're conditioned in this country like, well, you're a lawyer, you're a solicitor, you must know what you're talking about. I'm happy.
Oh,
And pretty much 99% of people I speak to who already have a will, spoke to a solicitor, I'd ask them a simple question, and like, no, that wasn't part of the conversation. So I'm like, right, so you haven't had the full advice you need. You sitting on this amount of wealth, but you've been given, like, you've got Rolls Royce wealth and you've been given a full Fiesta advice, but you weren't aware of it. So because of the lack of knowledge.
yeah.
So that's where we come in. We are so big on education. We believe that everyone has the right to make an informed decision. But how can you make an informed decision unless you are fully informed to make that decision? So hence, we equip ourselves to be excellent in our crafts, in knowledge, so that we can disseminate the information in layman's terms and allow that client to make a decision. Whether you decide to reject this recommendation, that's up to you, but you can't say you didn't know. And
Mhm.
most clients are in problems because they just didn't know. And that's the challenge that we have. So if I put it in perspective, the type of qualification I have is called, we're part of called STEP, okay, Society of Trust and Estate Practitioners.
Okay.
And the Solicitors Regulation Authority, I think there's something like, don't quote me on this, I think the last time I did the maths, something like maybe 16,000 to 20,000 solicitors on that
Oh,
on the books.
okay.
Um, and in the UK alone, because STEP is a global organization, there's something like 1,600
Oh, right. So
qualified,
that's, yeah.
isn't it? So it worked out about under 1%.
Yeah.
So my maths is a bit 160,000 solicitors, so not 16,000, 160,000 solicitors,
Yeah.
and only 1,600 people like myself that do what we do. So there's less than 1%. That's like ridiculous. So
Yeah.
now, with that perspective, most of the country are not getting the advice they need unless
Oh,
they're in front of a qualified specialist to help them. And most people, especially in the south of England, um, you're sitting on more than £500,000 worth of wealth without even thinking twice. So it's not hard to realize that if someone passes away without the right planning, 40% of that wealth, up to 40% of that wealth will go to the government. And if you look at their books every quarter, it's in the billions. Every quarter they're making ridiculous money just on inheritance tax. Forget the whole revenue, just on inheritance tax.
It's on inheritance. Wow.
So the receipts are large, and it just shows that people are just not getting advice or getting it way too late. Whereas those who are wealthy, especially generational wealth, they have custodians to wealth. They are planned. They know what's going on. That's so they want to keep the wealth passing from generation to generation for multiple generations. That's their only agenda.
Right, right. And you
But that's
assist,
not taught in schools, right? We don't. People don't
yeah,
know this.
definitely. And you assist your clients with that then,
Yeah,
depending on what outcomes they're looking for.
exactly. So that's our, we come in from that angle.
Got it, got it, got it. Now, excellent. Now, listen, you're listening to the Business and Wealth Show. If you like what you hear, make sure you make some comments here, click like, subscribe, follow, depending on which platform you're on. You're listening to Richard Ansah and the business coach, Mac Attram. Now, Richard, coming back to you, if someone wants to get hold of you or wants to know more or wants to learn from you or wants to contact your firm, what's the best way for them to do that?
So you could just Google us. Once Wills and Trust will come up. You can go on any of our socials. We're very big on TikTok, believe it or not. A lot of our clients come from TikTok, but we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
or just Google us. We're there. And we just provide a lot of resources and education. But if you want to contact us, literally just call the office um, or email us. That's not a problem at all.
Oh, sure. We'll put some details at the bottom of this, the footnotes of this show. Now, Richard, is there anything I should have asked you around the work you do, wills and trusts, that I haven't asked you, but it's relevant and it's pertinent to this conversation?
Um, yeah, I'd say especially for business owners now, the law has changed quite significantly. Um, they were very well protected before from an inheritance tax perspective. And why I keep going about inheritance tax? Because if you want to transfer the wealth, but you want to transfer at least 100% of it, not um, for a significantly lower amount, because it will affect how that wealth is going to be transferred and what can be transferred.
Mm.
So business owners now, from next year, there's something called business property relief, which has now been slashed. It used to be unlimited that you could claim.
But this is UK specifically,
Yeah,
right?
UK specific.
Okay.
Even if you, well, I say UK specific. If you're UK domiciled, you can have businesses globally. As long as you're UK domiciled, you can claim this relief. Um, but that's changing from next year. So now it's capped at £1 million. Currently, it's unlimited. Now, there's business owners out there who have wealth significantly more than £1 million in their business.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't think they're necessarily aware of it. Farmers, the same thing. So it's now important more than ever to find ways to protect that wealth. And the other thing that most people don't really think about, which is what I really try to get people to understand, is what's the process when someone does pass away? What's the end result? And that's
Mm.
called probate. And most people think, well, it's just a simple process, and that's not the case. HMRC want to know how much you're worth, and they're going to get their money.
Mm.
Um, and the question is, how will it be paid? And if you, just like most people, asset rich and cash poor, we have a problem. Now, the most common one I see is, let's say, for example, you're sitting on £1 million worth of wealth, and you've got to find £200,000 of inheritance tax to pay, but you don't have £200,000 of cash. And most people think, oh, I'll just sell a property or two. But without a grant of probate, you can't sell a property. No lawyer in the land will touch it because the wealth is not transferred to the beneficiaries yet.
Yeah.
And so we've got this vicious cycle of just stuck in limbo because we've got to find wealth from somewhere to pay off a debt that we didn't really accumulate or didn't plan for.
Right.
And that's not talked about nowhere near enough. And so a lot of people are sitting either with no will or very basic wills with no conversation around inheritance tax planning for their wealth. Well, that's what it comes down to. It's not just about having a will and distributing it. It's about, well, if I distribute it, what will trigger? Because inheritance tax is a tax on the transfer of wealth.
Right, right, right.
That's the definition. A tax on the transfer of wealth.
Yeah. Now, I suppose this is where people need your
Yeah.
expert advice, because otherwise it could cost them much more in the long run,
Significant. Yeah.
significantly.
It's horrible. So that's why I'm trying to emphasize, I kind of don't like using the word will writer because
It's more than that.
it is far more than that. It's like we're trying to help people save their money and transfer it as efficiently as possible. And the will
Fantastic.
just as a tool that will help.
Right, 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 right. So you heard it from Richard Ansah. If you want to protect your hard-earned money, your wealth, your family's wealth, and pass it on generationally, get in touch with Richard Ansah and let's see how his firm, Once Wills and Trust, can help you. Now, remember his motto: own nothing, control everything. And imagine your family still having a legacy years and years, years after you've passed because of what you've created and what you've set up. Richard, I want to say thank you so much for jumping onto the Business and Wealth Show. I'm very,
Thank you
very
for having
glad
me.
we had this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
You're
Appreciate it.
most welcome. Until we speak again, take care. And everyone listening in, remember, build your business for wealth, not just for income. Not just for income. Make sure you do that. That's why we wanted Richard here, really, to talk about what happens now, what happens later on. So get in touch with him. Let's see how we can help you. Bye for now. Take care.